Baseball is moving forward quick with its 60-game regular season. We're going to try to sort all this out tonight with longtime Phillies reporter Paul Hagen. Paul, welcome back to the show.
Thanks. Good to be back.
Hey, Paul, thanks for joining us for a third time. It is much appreciated. And so as we speak here on July 8th, we're a mere 15 days away from the scheduled start of Major League Baseball's planned 60-game season. What's your sense? Is it going to happen, Paul?
I'm a little skeptical of the whole thing. I guess if you're asking me, flip a coin, I think yes, it'll probably start. I think that the odds of it actually making it to a playoffs are probably pretty long. The biggest thing to me is the players have to buy in. The players have to trust this system, that the testing works, that they're being kept safe. And with the wrinkles or hiccups or whatever you want to call it that have been in the system so far, with teams having to cancel workouts because they didn't get the test results back, with Adam Hazley having to sit out because apparently his test got lost or something or misplaced. If I'm a player, I'm beginning to wonder, how much I can trust this whole testing system.
Yeah, and Paul, I was wondering, are they asking, everybody gets hung up on, well, they make a lot of money. We know they make a lot of money. But is it asking too much of these players to leave their homes for 60 days, 90 days, whatever the number ends up being? Is that asking too much of the players?
Well, no, because players can opt out. But what I think is asking too much is to say that if you're making X amount of dollars, that you should risk your life if you feel like you're putting your life at risk. I mean, what's the cutoff point? If you're making $200 a week, well, you shouldn't. But if you're making $1,000 a week, you should, or $1 million a week, you should. I don't know what. I don't think money really should even be the issue here. The issue is, to me, if a player feels comfortable enough and his family feels comfortable enough for him to play, then that's great. He should play. But if he doesn't, I don't think anybody should look at it and say, think less of him or look down on him because he doesn't feel comfortable with the way this is being run, especially with some of the early results we've seen with this testing system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Marcus Hayes wrote a column today criticizing players who are opting out or even considering opting out, like Mike Trout and Zach Wheeler, saying, we're watching multimillionaires decline to work after they spent the last 6 weeks begging to go back. That's selfish and elitist, especially at this moment. Is that too harsh, do you think, Paul?
Well, let's just say I 100% disagree with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't care how much money you make. If you get COVID and you, God forbid, pass away, you're dead. You're not making any money. And I just don't think that money has anything to do with it. Do players as a whole, did they want to come back and play? Yes, I think they did. Do most of them still want to come back and play? Yes, I believe they do. But if you as an individual look around and you look at your life and you look at your family and you assess the risks and you decide that you don't think that it is worthwhile for you, I don't care how much money you make. I think that's a personal choice. I belong to a gym locally, and the gym was closed. Now it's reopened. So now I've got to make a choice. Do I go back? Do I feel comfortable enough to go back? That has nothing to do with really how much it's costing me to join the gym or how much money I'm making. It's a personal decision based on whether or not I feel safe.
Yeah. Well, hey, on to more fun stuff like baseball. How do you like the setup? How do you like the 60 games? I know 60 games in 66 days is pretty tough, but how do you like the AL, NL mix and getting to see some different teams in short series in a lot of cases, just 2 games?
Well, I hate to stereotype myself as an old curmudgeonly dinosaur, but I really don't like it much at all, to be honest with you. To me, the beauty of baseball is that it unfolds over 6 months. The beauty of baseball is that if you go to extra innings, it may go 17 or 18 innings. And you don't start with a gimmick like having a runner on second base. The beauty of baseball since 1973 has been that there's different rules in both leagues. The NL doesn't have the DH. The beauty of baseball to me is that, you can keep an eye on the best players down at AAA and wonder when they might come up, or, if somebody does get injured, you bring somebody up from the minors and you look forward to seeing how they're going to fit in. Now we may be in a situation where you reach down to the bottom of your 60-man roster and bring up somebody in what passes for a pennant race now, who's been taking glorified batting practice for a month and a half. So there's really not a whole lot about this that I like. I think my biggest concern, again, is that I fear that it's just not going to make it to the playoffs. And that's the only reason that they're doing this. They're doing this to get to the playoffs because they think they can make so much money off the television of the playoffs that's why we're going through this. And I guess if you have to do that, this is okay. I don't like the idea of only playing the Eastern teams, but I guess in a 60-game season, if you're going to do it, that's okay. It makes some sense. It cuts down on the travel, that sort of thing. But I just don't, I fear that, we've already had Phillies players who have tested positive. There have been players across baseball who have tested positive. Once the season starts, if somebody tests positive, as I understand it, they're supposed to go away for 14 days, but all the players who they were around keep playing. And I just don't, that just doesn't seem, it's as good as you can do under the circumstances, but I just don't, I fear that once this, if it gets started, it's going to snowball and it's going to end in a really ugly way.
I hear you. And the schedule can be pretty ugly, too, for the Phillies. 42 out of those 60 games against the Nationals, Braves, Mets, Yankees, Red Sox, and Rays. Tough road right there. But enough of that. If there is a season, Paul, even though the Phillies have a new manager, a well-respected manager, and a pretty decent lineup, there are a slew of questions, at least in my mind, regarding the pitching staff, starters and relievers. Zach Wheeler, as we mentioned, could miss part of the season because his wife is expecting. How good or bad is this pitching staff?
Well, I don't know. And that was going to be one of the things that was going to be fun to watch over the course of 162 games, if it had shaken out that way. Obviously things have changed. In the normal year, Zach Wheeler would miss 3 days on paternity leave. I don't know if that's going to be extended or if he can take his 3 days for paternity leave and then say, I still don't feel comfortable, so I'm going to take another week. I don't really know how that's going to work. So I guess these are all things we're going to have to figure out as we go along. But, in theory, you can always construct a case. New pitching coach, maybe he gets something out of Vince Velasquez and or Zach Eflin, that other people haven't been able to before this. I think Arrieta is going to be fascinating. He's in a contract year. He's had the surgery. His elbow should be better. Nola, he has not really had the amount of time he normally obviously would to get ready for the season. So I don't know. That's to me going to be one of the fun things to find out. Then we look at the bullpen, and 3 of those guys have had apparently something COVID related that have set them back. So that's going to be interesting to see. I think on paper, if this were a normal year, on paper, I think you would say that the Phillies, because they've added Wheeler, because they've added Didi Gregorius, if you think a manager can make some difference, and in this case, I think he can, they have Joe Girardi, I think they would probably be a better team. But, we always tend to look at the team we're following and rooting for and say, well, are they better? Are they worse? Well, other teams get better too. I remember when Jim Leland was managing, he always used to say, the other guys give scholarships too. And you can't just look at your team. You have to look at the other teams and see how you stack up against them.
Yeah. Hey, Paul, if you're Joe Girardi or any manager, if you're Joe Girardi, there's no room in a 60-game season for a lull. Do you come out sprinting out of the blocks and just manage this thing all out from day one?
I think you have to. I mean, you obviously can't run people. You can run people into the ground even in 60 games. So you still have to give people some rest. But yeah, I mean, I think you pick this up like you're in August. It's August 1st. Late July, August 1st. Just as if, in a weird way, everybody was tied at 33 and 33 or whatever the records were, and that's where you're starting. So I think you have to approach it that way. I do think, though, that on the flip side of that, by this time of the season in a normal year, you might be willing to let your starter go an extra inning or two if he looks like he's really on that night, and pitch deeper into the game. Well, clearly that's not going to happen, at least not right away. So I think you're going to see starters actually going shorter, which puts more emphasis on the bullpen, which is a little different game. But yeah, you have to treat every game like it's 2.3 games or whatever the math comes out to.
Well, Paul, the last time you were on with us, it was way back in mid-October. It's a whole different world now in a lot of ways. But that was shortly after Gabe Kapler was dismissed, but before they settled on the new manager who you mentioned. If I remember correctly, you were on board at the time with Joe Girardi taking over. What do you like about Girardi?
Well, I think that he is going to walk that good line between giving the players room to breathe and holding them accountable. I think Gabe was a very modern manager in the sense that he wanted the players to be comfortable, and a lot of managers do that. Terry Francona wanted the players to be comfortable, but a manager also has to draw a line. A manager also has to be able to say, okay, no, that is not acceptable. I'm going to hold you responsible for this. You can't do that again. And that's where I think Gabe, in my opinion, came up a little short. I don't think that's going to be a problem with Joe Girardi. I think the players are going to know where they stand. I think they're going to have more defined roles. I've never been fully on board with the idea with the relief pitcher saying, well, I couldn't pitch in the 6th inning because my role is the 7th inning. I think that's kind of silly, but that's the way apparently a lot of them feel. And if you are a manager, your job is to get the most you can out of what you are given. To me, the mark of a successful manager isn't necessarily winning the World Series. It's the guy who you look at his team and you try to figure out, did he get the most out of what he was given to work with? And I think Joe Girardi will probably do that.
Well, I'm excited. I was excited coming out of spring training. I'm excited now about Rhys Hoskins. I think Rhys Hoskins is the guy that really makes the difference. If he's as good as I think he can be, I sat here and put my foot in my mouth last year and said he was going to be an MVP candidate with Harper in the lineup. We know what Harper's going to get. We didn't get that from Hoskins. But it looked like he was having a nice spring, a little different swing. I'm excited to see if he can carry load, because I think if he can, we know what we're going to get out of Harper. I think then they have a chance to being pretty good.
Yeah, I think that's going to be one of the most fascinating storylines of this season. Unfortunately, I think it's going to get a little lost in the shortness of the season, and all the other stuff that's going on. But yeah, I mean that might be, and I hadn't really thought about this, but if you were going to identify, what is the biggest key for the Phillies' success this season, it very well could be Rhys Hoskins.
We need to talk also about JT Realmuto. I saw reports today on the video also during the workout. He hit an opposite field home run, and Bryce Harper immediately said, sign him. So I hope they do. Now, Matt Klentak has made some comments recently about the landscape having changed or whatever, and a lot of Phillies fans immediately assumed that meant they're going to hold off on this. Please tell me, Paul, they're not going to screw this up and let him get away this winter, are they?
I don't know, because I'm not in the room. I'm not part of the conversation, so I really don't know what's going on. I will say, and I don't mean this as a criticism of Bryce Harper at all, but he's already got his 330. So it's easy for him now to sit there and tell the Phillies how to spend their money. I guess my thought would be this. yes, they really should re-sign JT Realmuto. They gave up a lot to get him. He's probably the best catcher in baseball, and they're a much better team with him than they are without him, regardless of who would, they would get to replace him. But in the real world, you have to sometimes make choices. My question, here's the question I can't answer. When the Phillies signed Bryce Harper, there was some scuttlebutt which the Phillies did not deny that would not keep them from going after Mike Trout if Mike Trout had become a free agent the following year. Money didn't seem to be an issue at that point. Then a year later, money was an issue. We heard about the luxury tax threshold, and they seem to be wanting to stay under that. So I guess my point would be, are we back to 2 years ago? Are they all in? Do they want to put together the best possible team and not worry about the luxury tax threshold, or are they worried about that? And really any answer is fine, but it does define how they need to move forward here. They should have some money coming off the books at the end of this year. So that's a good thing. But I think we've really gotten some kind of mixed signals, I should say, from John Middleton on what exactly his tolerance is for a high payroll.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting. Hey, Paul, I have one final question for you. I'm going to get off of baseball in just a second. That library you have behind you, you have more books on one shelf up there than I've ever read in my entire life.
Well, I've loved reading ever since I was a kid, and I never get rid of a book, so they tend to pile up.
Hey, Paul, assuming there is a season, and we do hope there is, it'll be one without fans in the stadiums. So it's going to be very weird for us watching from home on television, of course, but what's it going to be like for the players? All those games that do count now with almost nobody in the house to cheer and boo and that sort of thing.
As it turned out, I covered the game in Baltimore a few years ago when there were no fans in the stands because of the riots. And I think that was a very weird atmosphere, but I think everybody knew it was just like for one day. So it was kind of like, okay, this is unique, and, then we'll get on with our lives. Now that this is going to be an everyday occurrence in every park, it's going to be very different. It's going to be very strange. I don't know whether there's going to be crowd noise piped in for the broadcast or how they're going to handle that. I think in Korea, didn't they have cardboard cutouts in the stands to make it look like people? I think I saw or read that the San Francisco Giants, have told their season ticket holders if they send in a picture of themselves, they're going to get cutouts made and put in their seats. So, yeah, it's going to be strange. And, the games are played for the fans. And that's part of the home field advantage. It's part of the fun of going to the ballpark. It's really a big part of the game. It's going to be missing, but unfortunately, that's just the world we live in right now. And I certainly would rather, if we can play these games safely with no fans, I'd rather have that than not be able to play them at all.
Hey, Paul, on the cardboard cutouts was kind of funny because I think another part of that story in San Francisco was that if a foul ball or a home run hit your seat, they would send you the ball for $85, only for $85.
$85 plus postage and handling, right?
Right. So for $100, you could get the foul ball that hit your cardboard face. Crazy world we're living in.
Hey, Paul, one more thing. Let's
Definitely.
assume they do get the season in, all 60 games.
Okay.
Give me some sort of prediction. How will the Phillies do? Can they compete with the Braves and the Nats and the Mets in the NL East? Given the tough schedule, can they compete?
I think they can. I mean, I think there are a lot of things that have to go right for them. Clearly the starting pitching, they need some pleasant surprises there, Arrieta and maybe one more. And Hoskins needs to bounce back, and Gregorius needs to be the guy that I think he can be. I'm really excited if he is, fully back from that elbow surgery, I think I'm really excited to watch him play here. So yeah, I mean, in a short season, anything can happen. The last 2 years, the Phillies have gotten off to a very good start. It was just later in the season that they had a problem.
Yeah.
And of course, as everybody knows, the Nationals were 19-31 after 50 games last year and won the World Series. So yes, I absolutely think in a short season, that just increases the possibility that something totally unexpected could happen.
All right. Well, Paul, I think we have run out of time. We've taken all your time. We could do this for a couple hours, I think, and it'd be a lot of fun. But we appreciate you taking the time to join us. Good stuff.
Anytime. Thank you.
All
Thanks,
right.
Paul.